Thank you very much, Ambarish. And I think you have made such a very profound and touching dedication of this session to the millions of families that are in utmost distress. And they should not have been like that. And I think it is a responsibility of all of us to be with those families. All that we can do is perhaps at this moment pray and put pressure on the government to reach out to these families and not give up hope, and constantly keep questioning the government on their inaction to in fact give support to these families that are under the greatest of threat to life and dignity. Now, since you began with this, I think all of us know about the plight of children who are out of schools today. They are so visible now. As you said, they are walking on streets, they're walking barefoot, they're walking under the sun, they're hungry, they have health issues, they're anxious. Some children are just being delivered while walking on the streets, and they are little infants. So, I just wanted to know whether these children have ever been captured in the data of out-of-school children in the government at all. The government all the time says that 98% of children are already enrolled in schools. We know, as activists on the field, we know the truth. And the truth is, maybe their names are there registered in the attendance register, but are they actually attending? Are they actually going to schools? Why are they not attending? And why is it that they have been stuck in sweatshops, in farms as child labor? Why are children being child trafficked? And why is it that the government has not paid attention to them at all? Is it they're not right to education? Is it not a fundamental right? And it is not just the COVID that has alerted us to this. We all know on the ground that there is, I would call it a data terrorism that is going on. Governments does not want to accept that children are out of school, and that there is a lot that has to be done for children who are out of school. First of all, they have to correct data and tell the truth about how many children are actually attending school, how many children are not attending school. Not give us statistics, give us the names of each one of these children and tell us about each one of them on why is it that they are not in school. I think we will have to correct this data gap that there is. Government of India all the time boasts of children being in school. It is lie. It is full of lies. And because this has happened, now the entire discourse has shifted to this, that because children are all in school, the problem now is of improvement of quality of education in school. That is another big lie. You start on a lie that children are all in schools, and then you start on the assumption that because they are in schools, quality of education is the issue. Certainly, I think there is an argument for quality of education, but then you have not looked at the link between inclusive education, democratization of schools, getting every child to school, and making that as a part of an objective of education, the link between that and improvement of quality of education. Can there be quality of education? Can there be any improvement in quality of education if children are out of schools? If poor children are not respected? If they're not given dignity? If the system does not know how to care for them? If the system does not welcome them? If the system does not embrace them? Why am I saying they're not welcoming them? Are there enough schools? Are there enough hostels? Are there enough teachers? Of course, you will then give me examples of schools that have teachers but no children. But this is a distortion. I don't want to get into this aspect at all, but if you go school by school, village by village, and do a decentralized analysis of the number of children in schools and out of schools and the infrastructure that is available, you will find the truth speaks differently. Children are out of schools. One, the data has to be corrected. Children are not going to school because they're not being respected. They are children of the poor, marginalized, Dalit, Adivasi, and other children whom the schools don't respect. And I'm saying the schools don't respect with an evidence that the schools are just not available. I am not blaming the school teacher at all. I think we have to keep the school teacher on the side of us. They are as much, I think, sometimes victims of the system as children themselves are. Overall, I think the education system has failed them. So, because there is a demand for education, you find the poor are sending their children to private schools. Is that not enough indication that the poor want to send their children to schools? And why is it that the private schools are growing all over the country in a rapid speed? There is a market demand for education. Why doesn't the government schools make their schools possible for the poor, just so that the poor don't have to spend so much to send them to private schools? And this has resulted in gross inequities and exclusion in education system. So much so that children are out of schools, there is no justice for them, and their education is sealed. Let me come to the COVID issue. I'll just do 5 points, and then I think my fellow panelists have so much to share. We know that, we have to keep repeating it, although we know, which Ambarish has so beautifully stated, there is hunger. There are health issues, there is anxiety, there is uncertainty, and this exacerbates the inequities in society and iniquitous relations even in terms of education. We know that children who have been abandoned in work sites have been left to take care of themselves. We are really listening to stories from Jaipur, from Hyderabad, and so many places. They have been trafficked, the traffickers have run away, and the children are left nowhere. We also know that these children might end up in more exploitative situation, more dangerous circumstances. We also know how children who were in KGBB, in hostels, abruptly were sent back home. It's not that they don't go home during vacations, but here they have been sent back home, into a home where there is no food, where there is hunger, where there are no incomes, where there are wages to be earned, but nothing is happening. And it is in these circumstances you find how girls especially have been pushed into more and more household work. And there is such a great risk of many of them getting married. So, this also is causing violence, depression, uncertainty on children. Then now the Kharif crop is coming. There are stories after stories where children who are being sent to work now in agriculture. Normally during summer vacations, these children would not have been sent to work. Let me tell you that they would have been encouraged to stay at home because they're students. But now there is no food at home. There is no social security system. People are fighting. Of course, now there is some NREGA work going. Otherwise, there's so much hunger. So children are being pushed to work. Our children are social security system? Then let the government put it in its list. We have PDS, we have NREGA program, we have a child labor program to see that children overcome hunger. Let me tell you, children cannot be our social security, means of social security. They have their rights, they have to be in school, and they must not be allowed to go to work. And the government has to make every arrangement to see that the law on child labor, the law on child right to education is actually implemented. Then the other issue that has come up is that about online education. Actually, I heard Govinda also speak earlier. There is no need to worry about closure of schools. How many times there were hartals and bands and schools have been closed and they got reopened. So why are we so worried that schools are being closed? Even when I went to school, the schools got closed for 6 months because of agitation in the government. These things happen. When there are elections, schools get closed. But now there is such an alarm about schools going closed that you introduce surreptitiously online education. There's a great experimentation going on in private schools, and now governments have caught on with this experimentation of online education. And I fear to look at the implications of this online experimentation that is going on, which can further divide and further get iniquitous, and perhaps it would help all the software people, experts and companies marketing their online products more than the children themselves. We have to worry about this. It's okay for schools to be closed for some time, but make sure that they don't go for work. Let children be children. And now that is the argument I would take. there is a pressure on class 10 board examination. In many places, the board examination, many states have not finished their board examination. And now with such a huge gap of some 2 months of closure of schools, all of a sudden some states have decided that they should hold board exams. I know it is happening in Tamil Nadu. I know it is happening in Telangana. Come on, if the schools were not functioning for 2 months, if there's so much uncertainty and anxiety, is it possible for children, poor children, to compete with all other children to take the board exam? In any case, the new education policy talked about abandoning 10 plus 2 and making secondary school as one whole, 9, 10, 11, 12. Why don't we seize this opportunity in uniting, putting together the secondary school as one holistic school, and then say that let's not have 10th class board exam. Also, let children seamlessly go into the 11th grade. When they can seamlessly introduce online examination, I don't see why the government cannot seamlessly introduce a secondary school education policy that was so nicely put that maybe this is one of the only best recommendations that the new education policy had done. Why don't they introduce a secondary school education that is together? So while I'm saying this, let me just appreciate the work of NGOs on the ground and also some school teachers who have tried to link children to the online classes. In Bihar, teachers who are linking to online classes. Let me also appreciate and commend the work of NGOs who are mitigating hunger and poverty, who are stopping child labor, who are providing reading material, who are tracking children. Finally, I would like to end by saying that this can be overcome if there is an element of trust in the system. Let us trust the Gram Panchayats and the school management committees. Let us involve them in tracking children. Let us trust the school teachers and their ability to teach. There's so much cynicism about school teachers. That cannot be there. Give them respect, freedom, and autonomy as professionals. Let us trust the parent and appreciate their demand for education and the sacrifices they're already making. Let us trust children and their thirst and hunger to learn and excel. And I think if there is a trust that is running through, justice for children will be rendered. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your encouraging speech.